Hey everybody, here we go. How's that for a kickoff, huh? This 5 Watt Live is brought to you with the support of TrueFire. More about my good friends at TrueFire later on in the stream. I'm still laughing because Victor Beebe put in the chat, okay, it's time to strat. I think that his computer is so used to him typing the word strat that it autofilled the word start to strat. I love that. It's sort of amazing to me that I only heard the expression buy once, cry once in the last few years. The general meaning being that spending for quality often means the product has a longer and more enjoyable life in our company. At the time, I think it was offered to convince me to cry once and buy the more expensive guitar. Of course, ever since I've wondered if it really applies to guitars. So let's talk about that today. See the description in the online store, hoodies, hats, etc. If you wanted to get a 5 Watt World Barber overdrive pedal, we've got those in stock on REVERB and directly from David. You can be closer in touch with me with the Friends of 5 Watt, of course, and I plan to run another sale on the YouTube Mastery for Musicians course starting on February 1st. And we're going to call it the Best Time to Start Is Now sale. Because I've had a number of people who said that they missed the sale at the beginning of the year. They really wanted to get started this winter. And I did a live stream just Tuesday for all the people that are that have bought the course. And we did an entire hour on thumbnails and titles. So we're doing kind of drilling down on individual things. And it's something I'm really enjoying doing this year. Now, remember, if you have a comment or a question, put it in the chat with a question mark and a space. I'm in Ecamm. That's with the live streaming software I'm using now. So I have a big window over here. I see everybody dropping in. It's good. It's good to see the regulars. Let's get started. Beve is here today. I still have a Beve slide that's almost working with my picture on it. And he's back in Europe. Music in the intro, of course, was a bit of improvisation that John Cordy played on his buddy Jake Loosemore's Gibson Custom Shop Murphy Lab Les Paul R9. That seemed appropriate for the buy once, cry once category. A guitar that John joked, well, here, I have the joke. Of course I have the joke.
All right, this is Elodie. She's my daughter, weirdly enough. And I wanted to make this video because Elodie, this video today is the reason that you can't go to college.
Did you hear that? He basically says he's got her on the video. That was 2 years ago because buying a guitar like that was going to be the reason she couldn't go to college. I thought that was pretty funny. I used to kick off my live streams mentioning any additions or mistakes I'd made to the recent short history video. I mean, there was a time when that's kind of all I was doing for a long time. And there would be things that didn't fit in the short history or things that I realized were incorrect in the resource materials I used, and I would have those corrections. Or you guys had shared with me all the things that I maybe didn't get exactly correct, or we disagreed about the history. So in that spirit, I got it. When I said last time that I was quoting Max from Watch Crunch, and I said that guitars are tools, not jewels, and JC sent me this, which I thought was pretty cool. He says, hey, Keith, your recent video sparked a thought. You mentioned guitars are and not an investment. I thought this. Guitars are an investment in your desires, your dreams, your future, but most of all in your success. Most of all in yourself. Success or failure you tried, and no one can take that away from you. I thought that was both beautiful, and I teased him back that it was the perfect example of a rationalization that you could use to buy anything. But I think mostly it's beautiful. And I think it's a good reminder that having an instrument, playing an instrument is a big investment in us. So that's going to get rolled into the next video I'm working on. On a sad note, Maddie K let me know that a longtime member here, Sassy Cat, passed away last month. He will be missed. And I'm rereading John Irving's book, Until I Find You. And a character in that book comments that he thinks it's strange when someone you only knew a little bit passes away and how you can miss them sort of out of proportion with how well you knew them. I only knew Sassy Cat from here and years of comments. And I think it's what an unusual world we live in today, that we know each other so little and yet can rely on finding each other here like we tend to do whenever we do a live stream. Oh, there's Maddie right now. So thanks for letting me know that. I really appreciated that. There was a real moment of community. Oh, speaking of which, I enjoyed the channel meetup in Paris, and I'm working with Ish Guitars to put together one here in Syracuse. For those interested, I'll announce it when we get closer to picking a date. Okay, that's a lot of preamble. 7 whole minutes of preamble. Boko. Why don't we say Boko, like FOMO? It'd be something that's punchy. Maybe we could start saying that around people. A short abbreviation that might keep it in the front of our mind. Because I think there's something here. As I said, I'd never heard this expression, but I was talking, so what, 5 years ago, I guess it is, when I bought my R9, right? So it was 2021, 4 years ago. Anyway, I was talking to my then script editor, Perry, and if you followed the channel for a long time, you'll remember this picture of Perry's dog, Butters. Perry works in a field where having his own picture on screen, especially in some as sketchy a place as one of my videos, doesn't really work for him. So I always had this picture of Perry's dog, Butters, who's since passed away as well. If you've been following the channel, you recognize that. I think I was fretting about buying that custom shop R9 that I bought. And out of nowhere, Perry says to me, well, buy once, cry once. I remember pausing and then saying, what? And he goes, buy once, cry once. Get the pain of the purchase over and buying the best you can and being done with it. It was a bit of a mental slap in the face. I just remember thinking it was a concept I'd known, but I'd never heard the expression. I'd always applied these rules to buying clothes. When I first got out of college, okay, I'm going to make it really clear how old I am. I got out of college in 1983, and my first job, I made $10,800 a year in my first job in 1983. And yes, even in 1983, that was not a lot of money. And I was trying to buy decent clothes, but I could afford to buy one dress shirt a month in my new job. And I don't know where I got the money for a sport coat, but I did. And that's how I did it. It was buying once, crying once, buying quality, buying things that were going to last. And, I'd applied those rules to clothes. I've applied it to pocket knives, even motorcycles for that matter. But I'd never thought to apply it to guitars until sort of recently. And in that moment, I realized that buy once, cry once implied that you could arrive and be done. He sort of was saying, buy your R9 and you're finished. And Perry has an exceptionally beautiful Les Paul. So I think he feels like he's done with Les Pauls. He's got the one he needs. He's really a Strat guy. And so I think that it was an idea that if you save and then you have that, it's what it is. As I said, this idea applies to clothes, spending more money on something that'll last and hence in the long run cost less. And I did tend to, but you don't tend to wear out your guitars like you do clothes. And I did likely spend more money buying and selling lesser guitars rather than saving up and searching for the one in the style that did the job from now on. And it's interesting, I'm going to talk about a guy who has a spreadsheet of all of his watch collecting later on in the stream here. And I wonder if with all the buying and selling, even though I'm not a Strat guy, with all the different Strats I've bought and let go of, I wonder if I spent more than I would have on a custom shop, Strat and been done. And of course, a big trick of this is the buy once, cry once implies that you're done. And I think that's a challenge for most people. I think that we see the collecting hobby as not an ending, but a journey, so to speak, not to get too martial arts zen about it. So many lesser guitars in transactions. As I said, this applied to clothes, but spending money on something to last in the long run costs less. I don't wear things out. I don't wear out guitars. I don't even lose guitar picks. I was looking for some thin picks to use with the Acoustic the other day, and my wife was laughing because I pulled out some old Fender, some bright white mediums. If I can get it to focus without my face. There we go. And she was laughing because I had this box of picks. Like probably everyone on the stream has a box of picks like this. It doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 17, you just started last year, and you probably have a box full of picks. I'm pretty sure I bought these white mediums when I first started to play. So that would have been 1974, 75. I don't tend to lose picks, so I have a lot of picks here. So I don't tend to wear guitars out. I don't tend to lose things so much. I didn't gig. Well, I did actually gig a lot of acoustic gigs. They just lived in my pocket. Anyway, that's not the point of this stream. my OCD is not the point. It's right, not the point. You don't need to talk about it in the chat. Anyway, I think it's important to recognize that this is a pretty first world problem sort of conversation, as the saying goes. I'm sure folks in the comments will remind me that they are saving for their first guitar, or like dreaming that they can have a backup. To me, I'll say that just talking about some custom shop guitars, I'm not just talking about custom shop guitars, but rather anything that is the stretch for our individual budget. I think it implies a certain level of patience that is very odd. I just got an email saying that there's an Amazon delivery on my front porch. Patience is not the sort of thing that we really wrestle a lot with, I think, in the current society. And buy once, cry once does sort of imply a certain amount of patience that we are saving and waiting for something. I was actually checking out at the grocery store the other day, and the two kids that were checking out groceries next to each other, one guy was saying he bought his first car, and he was saying that he had saved $8,000-9,000. And the other kid was like, working here at Wegmans? Are you crazy? And he's like, well, I've been here for a long time, and parents kicked in a little bit to try to make the whole thing happen. And my uncle, helped me find a car. And as everybody went back to work, and that kid looked at me like, how is that possible? And I said, well, I'm not great at saving money either. And I've been doing it a lot longer. I said, but I've always needed a goal. And I remember having, guitars as the goal for a pretty big part of the early part of my life, for trying to come up with that. So Maddie says, these are platinum problems. I agree. Yeah. But I really don't think it is just custom shop level. I think it can be any level that is the stretch for you. And frankly, the best we can manage and then stick for the longest period of time is kind of part of what I'm talking about. Which brings me to this concept of cost of use. Boy, I'm going to rip through these notes and we're just going to go live. Yeah, Wes Chilton says his picks are in the Altoids tin. I have actually a couple of little cigarello boxes, and then I have one that was, I think, Jack Daniel's playing cards. That's the oldest box full, and I recently sorted them all out. So I recently watched this video by this channel, This Watch, That Watch. And actually, it's a terrible thumbnail. I realized after I put it up. It's really his thumb doesn't talk about what he's talking about. He's talking about don't collect. And he's kind of getting your attention by putting a Rolex and L'écoute Reverso, I think, the other watch on the other side. And what he's talking about, he's saying the Rolex is cheap. This is a guy who has a spreadsheet that he has kept since he started collecting. I love this, and it's incredibly daunting to me all at the same time. And he keeps track of every time he's worn each watch, how much he spent, and then he looks at the stats at the end of the year. And sometimes the watch has been sold. He says he has about 40 watches in his collection, and he tracks how many times he wears each watch and how much he costs in the first place. And he tracks it if he's owned it for many years. He tracks it over that many years. It's how many times has he worn the watch? And he realized that he had some watches. Maybe he was implying that fancy dress watch, tank dress watch, was one of them, where he figured out that every time he wore it cost him $450. And I thought, there have to be expensive guitars that I play so rarely that I should be scared to kind of do the numbers on that. But it is, I think, I'm kind of a data nerd, but it's this level of commitment, to have a spreadsheet where you would, I might build the spreadsheet, but I'm not sure I would be good about tracking it. I don't know if I lack the dedication, or I'm too lazy, or I'm afraid of the answers. But it runs through some interesting data points that may or may not apply to guitars. But the one that I found interesting was this cost of use one. He takes the original cost of the watch, he divides it by the number of times he's worn it, and he calculates how much time it costs him to wear it each time. Of course, the more expensive the watch or the guitar, the more expensive the use, unless you wear it all the time. And I think what he was implying in his thumbnail was he wears that Rolex Explorer all the time. And so Andy's owned it for a long time. I think that's an earlier generation. I'm not that much of a watch nerd. But if you have something that was of very high quality, but you used it many, many, many times, the original cost keeps getting divided by how much you played it, and certainly by how much you've enjoyed it. And as I'm saying this out loud, I'm even wondering if it could include how much others have enjoyed it, because I'm going to come to a little bit of that when I get near the end of my notes. And if you do keep using it and you keep it for a long time, then the math starts to swing back your way. With each cost, the cost gets less and less. All the while you're getting to enjoy this higher priced item. So I recklessly started applying this to my guitar collection, where really I realized that there's a version of this playing in my head all the time. Every time I get out, I think I had it on the thumbnail, and I have it here for illustrations purposes. Every time I get one of these Collings guitars, I have 2 Collings guitars, and every time I get them out, I'm reminded to how incredibly beautiful they are. And really, they are easily the nicest guitars I've ever owned. And they ought to be. They're very expensive guitars. And I had them out after the live last week, and I played them for the next few days. And then I had to go downstairs and get this one again today. I got put it away again. You can see me carefully strapping it into the stand. There's a version of this tally, like I said, that's running in my head all the time. And the live stream last week really kind of brought it back to make me realize that all the electrics that I currently have has me analyzing how often I think they get played. In my video, Great Guitars That Suck to Own, one of the categories I included is guitars that are so expensive for us that we hesitate to get them out and play them. And I've wondered aloud here many times now if really that's what's happening with these Collings guitars, that I'm worried about dinging them, or I'm worried about hurting them. And this, of course, really drives up the cost of those guitars, the cost of use, as the guy on This Watch, That Watch said. I actually don't know his name. He's only had a channel for a couple of years. I don't think he says his name when he logs on, but I like his work. Anyway, I admitted that this applies to my Collings. They're easily the 2 nicest guitars I've ever owned, and they're the ones least often on the stands in the living room where I practice for fun. So this brings me around to, should a guitar go? I think it's the long way around. I think this non-quantified cost per use is what makes me think about selling guitars. If a guitar was expensive or is valuable, but I'm not playing it, I'm not sure it really fits the buy once, cry once, because I'm not using it, regardless of what I might have spent for it. I start calculating not just a generalized cost per use, but also what I could do with that money if I sold the guitar. You probably noticed from watching the channel and that I've aged over time, my interest and experience has grown over my feeling of needing more and new guitars, separate from the ones that I buy in the video. That i30, I'll pull a picture of it. I've done the math, and either of those Collings guitars is worth 2 or 3 weeks, the equivalent of 2 or 3 weeks in northern Italy, with a little side trip to Switzerland to see the Matterhorn. And don't ask me why, but ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to see the Matterhorn in person. I must have seen it in a movie or something. And I realized that those guitars are really kind of worth that. You don't need to worry. I can save money, and I'm good about saving for things that are a goal. And I'm sure that we're going to head to northern Italy and Switzerland or the UK or something this fall without selling the Collings. But my point is that I see what I could do with the money that's tied up in the instrument, and that influences how I value the instrument in my life to a certain extent. I was an economics major in college, and I minored in philosophy and music. I'll bet you can tell right off the bat what I was good at and what I wasn't that good at. But I think what we're talking is what they refer to as opportunity cost. If you've already parked the money there, you can't use the money someplace else. And I think they refer that, if I vaguely remember, that's an opportunity cost. How we doing here? I saw a lot of questions go by. People giving me opportunity cost. Jake, thank you. Jake Stewart Music jumps in. I'm afraid to ask Jake how much if he had to study economics in college. So, I'm working on a video, as I said, about some ideas about collecting. I think I did it as a live stream last year, but I've had some other ideas. I've pulled things together. But one of the ideas that's germane to this conversation is that our most expensive guitars are not always our favorite guitars. And I think a lot of people make that assumption. You know, if they find out that we have more than one electric, if they're even remotely interested, they might, and they're trying to make conversation with a guitar guy or gal, excuse me, they might say, you know, what's your favorite guitar? And I think I said last week, it's actually over in the chair just beyond the Snorlax, is my red PRS Mira X. And currently that is my favorite guitar. It plays the easiest. It feels like home. There's a lot of things about it that I really enjoy. It's very lightweight. It's 2 humbuckers. It kind of lives in that Robin Ford kind of tone that I'm always chasing. So yeah, it's a thing. So that's not my most expensive guitar. That guitar was about $1,000 plus the stuff from John Mann and Ron Ellis. So maybe it's a $2,000 guitar now. But I'm working on that video and I realized that there's this whole list of reasons that buy once, cry once might kick in. I think this is my last point. So I'm going to run the TrueFire ad because I actually even have another guitar to pick up here. And then we'll do some questions, and then I'm going to go through this last thing that I've got coming along here. So, all right, so let me do the TrueFire thing. Hold on a second. I reached out to TrueFire to be my sponsor because I'd used them for years. I'm currently having fun going through Adam Levy's Pocket Rhythm course. With over 2 million users worldwide, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced level player, TrueFire has lessons to enhance and inspire your playing. Get 35% off courses using the promo code 5watt35, or like I do, sign up for the All Access Pass to use the entire TrueFire catalog. I really like TrueFire, and I think if you give them a shot, you'll like them too. Sign up using the link in the description to support 5 Watt World and get some great lessons at the same time. I'd like to thank TrueFire for their support in making this video. And we're back. There's Bebe putting in the tags in the comments. The link. Let's do some comments here, and then I'm going to come back and talk about my last category of where the kind of value comes for me in guitars and kind of sneaks up on me. There you go. Matty K says he's got the TrueFire courses. The guys at TrueFire tell me that my ads sell more courses than anybody else, and that they did a survey a couple years ago about who people's favorite YouTuber was, and I was on the top of the list, above above Rick and Tim, which I might have gone out of my way to mention those guys anyway. So here's Jake Stewart out in Texas says, how does opportunity cost the value of time factor into decision making regarding guitars? I think we can easily spend more time nerding out than actually playing and making. I think that's a great point, and I probably should have written up a few paragraphs about this because I thought about it and then I didn't write it down today, Jake. I think one of the points about this is I always think about it being kind of monk-like, you know, that if I was really serious about becoming a better player, I wouldn't think about having all these guitars. I'm not a studio musician, so people aren't coming into me and going, hey, do you have a guitar that'll do that whole Beatlesy casino thing? Because this guitar would do that. People don't ask me for that. I don't have that moment. So the sort of the journey of chasing guitars, and oh man, how long ago was it? I did a video called I Stopped Shopping for Guitars because I had come to a point where I realized that it had been a hobby separate from playing. It became a hobby separate from playing. Last time I knew, Jake has 2 electric guitars, and I think the picture in his little icon there shows him holding his Explorer, which he has had since high school. And he doesn't play in a metal-y band. And the other guitar he has is a Telecaster. Is it the Custom? I think at one time he had it set up as an Esquire, but he told me that recently he put it back to being a Tele style guitar. I see there's a side conversation about Harleys. If I haven't talked about it before, I had a Ducati for about 10 years in my 40s and early 50s. And it was pretty tricked out. I'll throw a picture up one of these days. If you dig back through my Instagram post, there's a picture of me in full leathers at Loudon. And it's pretty funny because I'm wearing a helmet with a mirrored shield, and people are always telling me that they don't believe it's me, which is, it's funny how people have a sense of who you are and then that's it. Joey Schmo, no, I'll be 65 on my birthday. So we're almost the same age. But I would trade 59 for 65. My birthday's in April. My buddy Alistair, that's absolutely true. Opportunity costs the most the first time around. It's interesting. I'm not sure what you mean. Do you mean, well, you're gonna have to give us a little more about that, Alistair. That sounds like Jake. I'm studying engineering econ for fun. Actually, I have no idea what Jake, I think Jake's a full-time musician. I don't know what his day job is, if he has one. Scrolling, you guys are watching me scrolling. But you know what? If I don't do this, there we go. David says go for the Matterhorn. Is that the movie I saw, Wes? The Iger Sanction? That could very well be. I was a total television kid. Mer Music says, for me, a guitar that I'm afraid to get clanged on stage or even at home is not worth having. Fundamentally, a guitar is and ought to be a tool, something to have, to hold, and to play. Amen. My guitars don't tend to need refurbishing. And I actually think that that can become a hobby for people. And I know people that refinish guitars and yeah, how much other people fix up guitars and then actually, I know people that do that and then give them away. Chris Welton says, ding, ding, ding. How much others have enjoyed hearing it. I have 50 plus gig playing the 52 Les Paul. How much have the patrons enjoyed hearing that living guitar history? I don't know. I'm actually going to talk about you in a second here, Chris. So I shouldn't have given you more time here on screen. There you go. Wes says the custom shop P-Bass paid for itself in the first 6 months. I think he's implying that he made the money back gigging. I actually went to Paris and was staying the second week in Montmartre and didn't go down. And I was like 3 blocks from the Pigalle, which is where all the guitar stores are. And I didn't get down there. Well, I did. I actually walked down there on a day when they're all closed, like on a Monday or a Tuesday. I just had no idea. And it was the only day I could go do it because we had reservations at the museums the other days. Maddie says, I wonder if you have OCD. If you make an effort to sort and organize your picks, you might have OCD. We could spend more time talking about OCD. It's OC because I actually do enjoy the tidiness that I create. All right. I know there's more questions if I dig deep enough, but I don't want to take your time watching me scroll. So let me talk about this last thing. And if I missed your question, bring it forward again. Oh, Bushido says, what kind of guitarist are you? Fender, Gibson, Gretsch, Rick, other. I like that you didn't include the category where I fall into it. So I mostly play electric guitar. But the people in my life mostly enjoy me playing acoustic guitar and singing. And actually, I'm going to play a little bit, if I can get this audio right, with my acoustic guitar in a second here. There's Nick. Hey, Nick. How you doing? I have learned a lot by buying and selling stuff, which has helped inform what to buy. I totally agree. It's the journey. Nobody can give you that experience. You have to spend time doing that. Trucker Cowboy Ed, I felt Boco when I bought my Les Paul Gold Top Standard for $26.99. Most expensive guitar I've bought. I don't desire any more Les Pauls. Amen. There we go. And the deluxe Les Paul that I have right now was about a third the price of that R9, and I've enjoyed it just as much or more. So. Okay. I totally skipped over it. I actually wrote to Bebe and told him I was going to do this today, and he emailed me back some advice. I meant to read it earlier, so I'll do that now. Bebe says, the best advice I could give anyone is buy the best quality that you can truly afford, especially for people who play as a hobby passion and not as their work. They have to feel comfortable and not overloaded with debt, I would say. And as my friend Professor Tomo would say, don't compare. True, not just for the skill set, but also for acquisitions. I think that's great. Okay, bring the questions all the way back to the bottom. Josh Rodriguez says, do you ever come to the crossroads between what guitar you want versus what you like? I really want a Castados, but afraid I won't like it because it's like nothing I've ever owned or played. Yeah, that sounds like you haven't gotten your hands on it, and that is a huge issue in the current world. You gotta get your hands on guitars, and buying guitars through the mail that's another stream. We could do that some other time. Okay, so I was talking about how I'm working on this other video, and one of the concepts is that our most expensive guitars aren't always our favorite guitars. And I said I play that $1,000 PRS more than I play this i30, and I wonder at that. There's so many reasons that a guitar ends up being our favorite. That one is incredibly light and is just red. I should get it out. This one is incredibly light. It weighs 5 pounds and 5 ounces. Is a short scale, 24.5-inch scale. I said, actually, I think last time that these were 24.594, but somebody corrected me with an email or a DM saying that the 594 thing in the PRS catalog came later, that it was like a couple years after this. So this actually is a 25.5, like the Santana guitars. Man, this is dirty. It's got all the things. It's not perfect. It's got some dings on it. It's got quite a few dings on the back, kind of some dents and worming from belt buckles, etc. It's just the right combinations of things. I don't love the color. There's a white one in the living room that's in the process of starting to get fixed up. That's very much like this. It's even a little brighter than this, so it's a nice companion to this guitar. But as I was going to start talking about, where can I put this? I'll put it on the floor. It'll be safe. I won't step. There we go. There's so many reasons that a guitar ends up being our favorite. Maybe it's the one that we've owned the longest. Or, here's your moment, Chris. This is Chris Welton's newest Supreme, actually. I think it's a Les Paul Supreme that he had a third pickup added. And this is a great story, but he has a guitar just like this that he gigged for years. And he said it's a great Les Paul, sounds amazing, weighs a ton. But he loves it because it's the one he's played thousands of gigs with. Or it might be a guitar like this J45 that I bought. But it's also the song that I played and sang for my wife the first time on. I'm going to talk a little more about it. Or this guitar, which I call the Loch Berlin guitar. I'm from a little hamlet in upstate New York called Loch Berlin. This guitar was built for me by Adam Buckwald at Circle Strings in Vermont in 2015. It was to be my buy once, cry once acoustic guitar. And it's kind of an OM shape. It's a pretty expensive guitar. We kept doing all these upgrades to it, and I'll show it to you. And you might have seen it here before. I was trying to make it a generational guitar, so I bought that J45 to take to jams. And it's a very different guitar. But this, let's see, get that out of there. Since we've got the actual thing here. You can see it's kind of an OM shape, but it's not a purely OM. This guitar encapsulates lots of pieces of my life, and I really don't think of myself as being particularly sentimental about guitars anymore. But this was built for me by a guy who had become a friend of mine. And I'll just run through the things here. The wood on the back and sides is black walnut that was cut down from the farm I grew up on in 1976, so when I was 16 years old. The stripe of maple that fills out the width of the back that I needed here is from a curly maple from Vermont that was cut and milled, and as were the sides and back were milled down to the thickness we needed by Jeff Parsons, who was a fine woodworker, is a fine woodworker, and is a good friend of mine that lives back in Vermont where I lived. He also contributed the wood for the binding. That's also curly maple from the same tree. The mahogany is from someplace, I don't know, in the neck. It's an ebony fingerboard and an ebony bridge to keep everything in line. The top is one of those things where if you're having a custom guitar built, you keep stopping in to see the luthier, and he actually let me pick the top. And he put a whole pile of tops there, and he had me tap them, and we talked about it and stuff. And what a surprise, I ended up picking one of the more expensive pairs of tops. This is Adirondack spruce. And I grew up in upstate New York, and I grew up playing, going to the Adirondacks camping as a kid, and then playing a lot of guitar around campfires as a young teenager with my family, which is something, as I've said here before, we still do. My family still does that. As I was saying, for me, this is a generational guitar. It has a very thin finish, so I have to kind of baby it. It probably needs a setup. It's never had a setup since it was built. And I just realized it's 10 years old. Dropped a pick. Oh no, I'll bet it was the end pin falling out because it's the winter time, right? I'll have to find that. That's, it's live, people. So, yeah, this is a very special guitar, and it was a buy once, cry once kind of thing. I have to change some settings to get a decent acoustic tone. I was playing with this earlier today. So let me get this out of the way and get this over here. I use a program that kind of, that Lyle from Sonic Audio taught me about, that takes away the sound of the HVAC, but it also cuts into this. So let me push back a little here and push down a little bit. Turn that off. We turned clarity off. I'm going to pull the mic down and put it on the 12th fret if I can get it to not fall over. Here we go. That thing that some acoustic guitars have where it feels like you're listening to reverb and there's no reverb on it. Dynamics. It's funny, I got this guitar out a couple of hours ago. Let me turn this back on. the guitar away and I'll get the mic settled again. I think it's pretty common to not play a guitar for a while if it's a nice guitar like that and it lives in the case. And then you pull it out. Oh, that's nice. There we go. You pull it out again and it sounds kind of muffled, you know, kind of has this kind of thing going on. And that's what that guitar did about 3 hours ago. And they really open up. I realize, you know, most of this stuff that I'm talking about is sentiment and attachment here of an emotional kind. But there's lots of things that influence how we play and hear a guitar, and sentiment can certainly enter into it when it comes to just a few precious instruments in our lives. So that's kind of what I had to say about Buy Once, Cry Once. That guitar was about $4,500 because he was just starting out in his business. I got a really amazing deal on it. I shouldn't even quote that price. This was the 58th guitar he built once creating circle strings guitars. And on the inside there, he signed it, number 58, July of 2015, to my good friend Keith. So it's a 24 3/4 inch scale, so it's got a Gibson scale, even though it's a Martin style-ish guitar, and it's slightly bigger in the bout, lower bout than the upper bout, to give it more bass for the size body it has. All right. Chris is correcting me that that's not a Supreme. That is a 25th, 50th anniversary Les Paul Custom. Incredible. He's got two. I'll have to go on and record Chris telling the story about how he ended up with two of those. It was a great story that he got that. Yeah, there you go. Just Playing Bass is my favorite bass. Isn't the most expensive. It's the one I've played on hours and hours. It's been with me through the best and worst of times. So Maddie, the Froggy Bottom is where Adam did his acoustic apprenticing. So I basically got a Froggy Bottom guitar for about 1/3 of the money. He had just left Froggy Bottom the year before. Victor says, do I have an archtop acoustic? I don't. The closest thing to an archtop guitar is that I-30, which is fully hollow. And it is a laminate guitar, but it is fully hollow. And you can dial that. I could dial that to make that sound like an archtop, put on flat. I've had flat wounds on it before, and it sounds just like my old Fender D'Acquisto jazz box. My name is Keith. What did I say? Keith Williams. Put clarity back on here. Here we go. I remember that Eric was a DAX guy. On the Road Again says, Keith, you feel if not now, when is a comparable quote to Buy Once, Cry Once. I do. Jeff Macrelane and I have a number of different versions of this. One of Jeff's that I always like is when somebody is surprised at what Jeff spent for like his historic makeover Les Paul. He'll say, I do this for a living. And that kind of sums it up. Or my point is very much your if not now, then when. Like I said, I'm 64 years old. So, and I've had a pretty successful life working in college administration, and now I'm, the retirement job is kind of the channel. And I work harder at this, frankly, than I did at the end of the administrative job because I'd done that for 35 years. But the reality is, yeah, I feel like if not now, then when. The real question is how much for me. It's always, now I even have shirts in the store that just say enough. 5-watt world underneath. And periodically I buy myself one. Glenn wants to know, do I ever play jazz? I do. Play a little jazz. I actually had a straight ahead jazz gig, a weekly jazz gig for 5 years from 1990. So 6 years, 97 to 2001. I put a band together that was just the guys, just was people from the university where I worked in Binghamton, New York, and we had a gig at the Lost Dog. So actually, if you ever run across me on Reverb, there's a little picture of me playing at the Lost Dog. So. Scrolling comments. Glad a sign came through. Pork Pie, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat said sing and play. So I sing and play at home and with the acoustic jam that I do monthly. But the fact is, they're all songs that I would know that I do with those groups are all copyrighted. So if I do a song like that, I'd lose any monetization of the video. So I love you guys, but I'm not, I don't love you enough to give up the monetization on every video by singing you a song. So, Maddie hit me. He caught me. Don't quote me on that. That's good, Maddie. You're very good. I was laughing with Adam Levy because I've played some little pieces of Pat Metheny things on the channel, and it never dings the copyright. So I don't play them well enough, and Adam thought that was hysterical. He loved that. So yeah, very, very campfirey is the place that I live on the Acoustic. Yeah, I get this all the time, Cappy. I don't have time to do recordings of me playing and also write the scripts and record them. Honestly, I'm struggling to try to keep it going and find time to travel and those kinds of things. So you're going to keep hearing John Cordy and Jeff McErlane and people like that. You'll have to put up with those guys. So. Reed says, is there a guitar that you didn't expect to like, but ended up liking it a lot? I like your little icon there, Reed. I don't think so. No, I had a real, I mean, people have heard the story before. I started the channel when I was selling off a collection of 35, 36 guitars. And they were not a lot of expensive guitars in the group. And I liked all of them for different things. So Bill was at the Paris meetup. He said hi from Burgundy earlier. Is there one that got away? I liked the R9, but I didn't like the top. It played great, sounded great. And it always surprises, I guess it does surprise me that I like Les Pauls as much as I do, because I think they're ergonomically just horrific. But I don't play standing up either. I'm not out gigging. I'm not in somebody's backline. Oh, here we go. On the Road Again says, how many guitars and amps are in the current collection? I'm at 6 electrics and 4 amps and want to allow myself more until I move some, because I just can't play them all regularly and find it daunting. Well, that's a good feeling. Everybody's got different things about this. I did it last week. I have 17 electric guitars right now. And since I did the live broadcast, I sold the Silver Sky SE to one of the longest standing friends of 5-watt, and I haven't shipped it yet. So sorry about that. He knows who he is, but I will. I was going to use it in a video, and I would like to get it photographed. I'm doing my business here now. I own I could do the amps as a current thing. I'd like to build a Vox AC15 and a Princeton cab this year because I love the sound of a Vox mixed with a Fender. I have a Fender Tone Master. I have my GA40 that Lyle from Psionic Audio rebuilt for me. And I was laughing with a friend of mine that he did 4 separate videos about rebuilding my GA40 because he had that much material. I'm not an amp builder, but Lyle is an amp builder. Yeah, so how many amp systems have I got? I've got 2 pair of Catalysts. I like those a lot, actually. I guess that would be something I was really surprised at how much I like those Catalyst amps. So Keith Dooley, hey Keith, how about buy once, cry once, live with it for a few years, decide to sell, cry again, then you can't get back what you paid. The guitar rental theory, right? Yeah, exactly. It's the guitar rental theory. That's David Barber's theory that I stole. That, you know, if you have something and you get to use it for a while and then you sell it and you have to take a little bit of a hit on it, that's exactly how I try to look at it. I haven't written any songs since I was a teenager, Ray. I have some original acoustic music, but I don't play it very often. It's funny, I play with a bunch of guys that play bluegrass and country music mostly, and I'll do like, let's see. I tend to do things like William Prince, Jason Isbell, kind of stuff, you know, more Americana in that group. And it's funny because there's so much bluegrass that I don't know, and they'll pull out some great old song like, it's really a country song, Never Leave Harlan Alive. And it's very funny to me that I'm like, wow, I love that song. Who is that? And they look at me like I'm nuts, like I should totally know that. And then I do a current Jason Isbell song, and they're like, who's that? These guys never listen to the radio. I love it. So. Joel Schmidt says, what model is your acoustic I just played? Sounds great. No, it's a hand-built guitar from Circle Strings in Vermont. Adam Buchwald, who had worked at Froggy Bottom before he put his own place together. He's got quite an operation going there now. And actually, I hope to feature Adam in a future video that I have coming up. I can't talk about it yet because it's sort of a secret project. But a secret on his end, not secret on my end. LCC 83 says there's Boco, but how many of our guitars are upgraded? Is it a forever guitar if it's going to need a refret? You know, I don't know. I tend not to wear out the frets on my guitars. I don't know why that is. I know a lot of friends of mine, my friend Dan, seems to wear through his frets like crazy. He does play a ton. He's out gigging all the time. If Chris is still here, I'd be very curious to know how often Chris has to have his guitars refretted because he's out playing gigs pretty much every weekend. I actually own 4 or 5 acoustic guitars. I own the J45, the Gibson J45, my Circle Strings guitar. I own a Cordoba nylon string guitar that's a cutaway. It's a very slightly narrower neck and very slightly not a completely flat fingerboard. So I think it's in their Fusion series. It's got a broken string on it. And like I said, maybe I'll do a live stream in the near future of the acoustics, because I also have one set up as a Nashville that I use in that jam when it's here at my house and I don't have things to drag around. I do not play bass. I play, I have at jams played bass. I used to have a Longhorn, Dan Electro Longhorn bass, but I haven't done that in a long time because I really am I'm a guitar player. Yeah, must be a really good friend to buy that silver Sky and wait for it, that I haven't mailed it yet. I suppose Chris Quiz says, I suppose it's difficult to fight self-consciousness around getting all the other things about your channel on point without putting your playing out there as well. You know, it's interesting. This is something that people bring up a lot, but it's never been an issue for me. I didn't start the channel to promote myself as a musician. I started the channel to have a conversation and build a community where there would be a sense that people would have a conversation about things around guitars and about what's enough and those kinds of things. More of really kind of big philosophical chat, now 280,000 strong. That's really why I started the channel. Picking up a guitar every once in a while is just because I'd like you to hear it. It's not really about my playing, but it is. I mean, I said it before. It is really hard to get the work out. Christopher says he really enjoyed those pieces. Well, if I build another amp, I'll try to drag Lyle into the project somehow. Oh, Mark Easter is absolutely correct. He's reminding me that I just built the FYD Deluxe. Dan Lurie and I built a Deluxe Reverb. That's a forever amp. That's a lifer. I'd like to get a new nameplate for it where it says like Labor Day Deluxe or something. I got to talk to the guys at Mojo Tone who built the cab. Maybe I'll get a new cab for it. But I do have it. And actually, I'm about to pull it back up into the living room and put the little Princetons away. Hey, there's Shane in Japan. There you go. He's going to sell off a guitar for what he paid for it. My understanding is that Adam does take orders. I don't know what kind of a backlist he has, but if you want to get a laugh, quote that price to him because it's been a long time since he builds these custom guitars for the prices he charged me. Oh, Perry's here, but he forgot. But he missed his moment early. You were early in the stream there, my friend. So Perry has just a one watch collection to die for, and I won't say what it is because it's a very nice watch. And so so he's trying to out me. My one watch buy watch. I can't bring myself to spend more than about $1,000, so maybe $1,200. So I thought I might celebrate the success of the channel last year by buying like a Christopher Ward GMT. It would be a kind of watered down version of the watch that Perry gets to wear. Oh, here's Chris answering my question. Rarely, usually only if I buy a guitar that needs a refret when I initially rehab it, so play it correctly, so it will play correctly live. Oh, that's great. It's interesting. You have a few guitars that you play live. Peter B says, I'm overwhelmed and looking for my first tube amp. I have a Vox Pathfinder and hate it. I know people that like those. Rick had one. He used it on his live streams at the beginning of the channel for years, actually, months and years. My favorite guitarists are Dwayne and Dickey, Mayoshi Takanaka, and Jeff Baxter. Any advice? My advice is always the same. If you're not gigging, I mean, go ahead and email me and tell me what kind of things you're doing. Send it to 5wattworld@gmail.com. I'm glad to help as much I can. Tell me if you're gigging or if you're just going to be playing at home. I always quote Jeff McErlane, who tells his students, buy a Princeton and a couple pedals. And if they say, oh, I was thinking about spending more money, he says, buy an old Princeton and a couple of pedals. So one of the best Marshall-y sounds we ever got in a video was when we used Jeff's brother's 64 Princeton and one of David Barber's direct drive pedals, basically the left side of the Barber bus. Jose Zamora is quoting other people from the watch world. Answered Teddy's, he's talking about Teddy Baldessar, answer to the one for $10,000 watch or 10. I did see that the other day. And he basically, Teddy said that part of it for him was the journey of learning about it, learning about what you like so that you know where to spend your money in the end. Somebody had basically said that earlier too. I'm not close to the market. I don't shop for guitars, so I'm not close. Somebody asked me the other day what I thought about what was happening at NAMM, and I admitted that as much as I like the channels, I turn off Andertons and Premier Guitar during NAMM. I just don't want my feed to be full of new toys. Haven't spent time with Les Paul Customs. Yeah, I mean, my Deluxe is enough Les Paul for me. AJ Dungan. Hey, Jay from Rochester. AJ, we're thinking of, David and I were talking about doing a parts caster for the Telecaster White Guard Telecasters. one. I don't know if we'll have time. I'm working on the schedule, so I have to schedule it far enough in the future to make time for it. Oh, we're over time here. Let me see. We got to have one more questions. Chris Butler says, any guitars that you spend a ton of money on and don't play that often, but you pick them up after a year once again and it's so good you can't sell it. Well, I always joke that if you're going to sell a guitar, if you're planning to sell a guitar, don't play it because it's in your house for a reason. But yeah, every time I think about, cashing out one of the Collings, I play them. And in about 10 minutes, I know that it's never leaving. The guitars are extraordinary. They're both extraordinary guitars. They play nicer than anything I've ever had. They're more stable. They're worth every buy once, cry once penny. Here we go. Shane coming in with an old. Shane's been around a long time. He has a right to ask this. Do you think 5-Watt World has wavered in any way over the years from its mission statement of getting the most music from the least amount of gear? And if so, in what way? I don't think so, Shane. I think other people are surprised that my definition of least is not what they hear when I say least. That's the big one. I don't mean the number of guitars. I don't mean the cost of the guitars. I don't mean any of that. All I'm ever meant by the motto, the tagline for the channel is that we question ourselves about why we think we need to have as much stuff as we have. That's it. It's kind of in every category of life. And I'll tell everybody, I have a replacement for it, but this is the denim shirt that I filmed the first video in, and I still film most videos in this, including all the live streams. And like I said, I have enough t-shirts. It's something I remind myself about, and it's something I still think about. So yeah, not to me. I don't have a problem with it for me. Okay, I am out of time, and I have a plan to go out with the wife for sushi. So I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to have John Cordy play us out, and I want to thank everybody for being here. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. And I will see you, it'll be 2 weeks because I'm going to work on scripts. I'm working on a remake of the Jazzmaster video, although I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I'm trying to get, David is excited to play his Jazzmaster for the video. I'm going to try to get him to play some nice shoegaze fuzzed up stuff because David's fuzz pedal is great and we don't hear enough of it. So yeah, I'll be in touch, and I want to thank everybody for being here. Remember to use the link in the description if you're going to buy stuff from the stores or a pedal, etc. And remember that if you're using the link for TrueFire, helps TrueFire know that you came there from 5-Watt World and that you like 5-Watt World, and it's the reason to be here. Oh, there's Scott Bogfoot at the last minute. See, I'm just talk about OCD. It's more ADHD, isn't it? Scott's there. He's like a squirrel on the edge of the vision. All right. I'm going to have us played out, and I'll see everybody soon. Take care.